All right, welcome back to Coach Blake's Breakdowns. I'm here with my man Drew at Iron City Film on the X app, where you can find all of his great draft analysis. But we're here to talk shadow teams, as we're always here to talk shadow teams in some way or another. But Drew, this was your first year doing a shadow team, your first draft, you really getting set up, really getting into the process. Just walk us through kind of what you wanted to come in to the shadow team experience, like what your kind of mindset was coming into the draft. And then, now that we've gotten through, walk us through how you're feeling.
Yeah, actually, my intro was one of our first shows over at Draft Professor we did together. You kind of ran through your whole spreadsheet and like introduced the whole concept. And it seemed like sicko enough for me to get in here and join in everything. It seemed right up my alley. And I think, like you mentioned this to me early on, it's a nice way, really, to me, it's kind of an exercise to just track my hits and misses, like keep myself honest as an evaluator. Like I'll enjoy trying, kind of making my own front office and like getting a scheme to plug these guys into. But to me, the most value in this is just to keep track of my hit rate as an evaluator, and kind of learn where I need to grow and where I need to change and what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong. But it's kind of overwhelming going into it first. Like your first year, because you have so many holes. Like you don't really know where to go.
53 of them. Yeah, 53
holes. Exactly. So, to me, it's really just like it's overwhelming, but it's also freeing because you can kind of go BPA in the best sense of the word. Where normally when you say BPA, it's more like best value available for your team or you're trying to fill. This is literally you're just go best player on your board everywhere. Which is what I did. I took some of my guys because that's just, again, that's kind of the whole point to me. What's the point if you're not taking your guys? But I mean, just starting out, I was at 2. The Travis Hunter debate was something I put, a little bit of something into. But I've kind of stood from the very beginning. I just don't see how you can be in 2 meeting rooms at once at an NFL level. I'd be shocked to see him play both efficiently. I was just always under the impression he's going to be either a full-time receiver or a full-time corner. And I don't know what the shadow team rules are as far as Travis Hunter goes. Like, can you put him at both? I always thought Abdul Carter was the better player anyway. He was first on my board. I was blown away by him. So I just might as well start my edge room off that way. I get to 22. I weighed a couple of options there. But again, like Jihad Campbell was 6th on my board. And I know the injury issues do worry me. I know that's why he fell that far. The medical red flags are, a thing. But to me, I was just, like I said, pure BPA. I just wanted to stick my board all the way through. So we had him as the first linebacker here. Donovan Zaraku was the first like major steal in my eyes. Again, 8th on my board. My first 3 picks were all top 10 guys on my board. So I'm doubling up on edge there. Maybe I try not to put position into my head too much, again, because I have so many holes to fill. Like I can worry about that down the road. Just get talent on the team for now. But I was a big Zaraku guy. I thought he fell a lot further than he should have. So I double up on edge right there in the first 3 picks and get him in there. Kyle Williams is the first guy. I'm sure, as you know, you were there the whole time. That I was, the leader of the Kyle Williams hype train. He was like my wide receiver 428th on my board. So I was planning on he was the guy I was planning on reaching on going into the draft, because I was going to get him no matter what. So I added him in to be the first receiver. I didn't put a lot of resources into receiver in this draft. He was just the only guy, because I didn't love the class overall. He was just the one guy that I had to have on the team. So I added him there. Pedaled the DB with Azareye'h Thomas, another guy that we both were pretty high on at the top of the 3rd. Another guy. Most of these were just guys that I had high, and I thought, because we knew going into this draft too, we heard that it was just going to be basically that, because the talent level was generally lower. We were going to hear a lot of guys were going to fall further than we all thought they should, because NFL teams had so much polarity on their boards, which makes the shadow team even more fun here, because everybody else had different boards, and there was so much variance in how the players fell in this draft. But yeah, Azareye'h Thomas was the guy I was big on. He was like 25th on my board. So I figured I'd start adding to the secondary with him. Same thing with Xavier Watts. I wasn't a huge Xavier Watts guy. There was people that had him like safety 1 or anything. I was pretty in line with consensus on him. But I figured he was a nice addition to the safety thing. And I was banking on Malik Verdon too, falling to UDFA's, which is where I ended up getting him. And I knew he was going to be more of a box safety type, so I wanted to land more of that rangy, prototypical free safety guy. Just so it turns out they ended up on the same team, so that's kind of cool.
Works out.
Yeah, I just ended up with half the Falcons secondary in my first draft. Funny how that works. And then day 3 was just offensive line for me because all of the offensive linemen that I fell in love with during the process all went to day 3. So either me or the NFL is doing something really wrong. We'll find out which one soon enough, I guess. Started off with Marcus Bowe. I don't really know where I'm going to play him. I don't know where New York's going to play him. I kind of saw him as a tackle first. I maybe center further down the road. Depending again, there's some flexibility shadow team wise, like where you can put them in different positions, correct?
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's like the thing with the whole shadow team experiment, right? The hard part is getting into that scheme, and B, figuring out where your guys are going to land and where you might want them to go might not be where they end up playing in the NFL. So the way like the scoring all works, it's all based on snap minimums, but it's all positional versatility as well. So like, I think we go back 3 years. And if that player has qualified in X amount of games at a certain position, then he's still eligible to be scored as that position. So these guys coming out of college early on, they have 3 years where they can still be considered a flex player before you have to kind of just say, okay, well, this is what he's playing in the league. And again, I mean, if you get a guy that's a 6 offensive lineman that's playing in multiple spots, and you can keep that versatility going. But, if he settles into a team and into a role, you kind of, as time goes, you'll kind of get locked into him being in that spot, but it should give you time to adjust. So I wouldn't, have too much pressure on you right now in that aspect.
Yeah, for sure. And it'd be interesting to see where he goes in New York, because he's probably not going to be a tackle unless they just want him as a depth swing guy. He's probably going to be somewhere on the interior. I've never seen him as a guard. I think that's going to be tough to make work. I think he's probably either that tackle or center. But went back-to-back offensive line picks right here. Miles Frazier and Logan Brown were both huge, my guys, throughout the whole process. Logan Brown was like a top 35 guy on the board for me, and he ended up being a UDFA. So I guess either a major medical and character stuff floated around with him. So those are probably more major than I thought. I just like the tape so much that he's another guy I thought, I want to leave the draft with him no matter what. So I'm okay reaching a little bit.
And hard, with medical stuff, right? Like that's where we don't have access to.
I don't have anything. So
that side of the experience, right? So there's guys that might slide that we're still high on, but might have medical red flags that popped up and never got leaked. And that's why they end up sliding. And hopefully the films just holds up. That's kind of the fun part, being, on the media perspective of it all, is just, like you said, you do a shadow team to follow your guys and just, check your process. But there's also kind of the weird variables in it that it's like, oh, I didn't necessarily miss on that guy. Didn't realize he had, chronic injury issues coming out. Because
the torn bicep had floated around. I know he was type 1 diabetic, but like that both of those, like the bicep didn't affect him at Kansas. And there's a bunch of guys in the league at this point with type 1 diabetes that have handled it and hasn't really affected them at all. So that, didn't really bother me too much. I was really, really close to taking Eli Manor here. Who's another guy that I found out after the draft that fell because of some medical stuff. But again, like he's probably going to be a day 1 starter at X for Tennessee at this point. So looking back, I probably would have switched that. I think my day 3 could have been better. Looking back on this, there are probably a lot of changes I would have made to my day 3 picks. But again, I was just kind of a purist by my board at this point. So that was what I was following. I just wanted to take, my guys in those two. I stick by the Damian Martinez pick. He was a top 75 guy on my board. I loved his tape as a pure runner. I do, kind of worry about that Seattle running back room because you've obviously got K9 and then Charbonnet. It's kind of crowded. I don't know how soon he'll be able to carve out a role. But again, I just going by the tape. One of my favorite guys in the draft, my RB5. So I was comfortable taking the shot on him. I'm sure Xavier Restrepo probably ended up on every single shadow team.
I hope so.
Because, I mean, we briefly talked about this right before we went, shut off the recording. But, like, all the digging I've been able to do, and I'm far from the most connected guy, but there's no medicals, there's no character stuff. It's purely the 40 time that made him fall. And even if you were the lowest guy in the world on Restrepo, like that tape was mid-day 3 at worst. He was the top 100 guy for me. So I just pulled the trigger right here. I didn't, wait for him to fall any further. I'm okay with that. I still think Restrepo was good. I think he's going to be a starting slot guy for the Titans within 1 to 2 years. So I fully expect him to make the roster. So I'm fully happy with that one. I wouldn't take that back at all. These last 2 picks, again, were ones like that I thought they were probably going to fall to the UDFAs, and there's probably some better value I could have gotten here. But it was just like, there's so much variance at this point. I might as well go ahead and pull the trigger on them. And just 2 guys that I really enjoyed watching their tape throughout the process. Max Brosmer was always my guy at QB. I peddled that agenda for a little while. Ended up in Minnesota. I'm hoping he can fight for that third practice squad spot. They did just trade for Sam Howell, which I don't, love, but I was, big fan of Brosmer, one of the best anticipatory throwers that I watched. Again, some concerning medicals there. The arm talent is bad, but I think out of any of the like late guys or the UDFAs in this class, I think Brosmer has the best chance of being that kind of journeyman backup, potential fringe starter at a certain point in his career. But again, like I went into this knowing I wasn't going to get my starting QB for my shadow team in this class because I didn't like this class. And that's another kind of beauty of going into this where you're going to have 3 drafts before you have a full roster filled out. So you can just kind of punt on certain positions. And I'm really high on some guys in this next year's class quarterback. So I'm kind of expecting to get my QB there, which I know you kind of are too, even though you went with Dart, not to go ahead and spoil your strategy at all. And then Eugene Asante was another guy where I kind of had a crush on him as a late day 3 guy. Throw him in as kind of a placeholder in that linebacker 2 spot because there was nobody really in the UDFA ranks that kind of jumped out to me. And then, that about does it for my draft as a whole. And then my UDFAs, I was really, really happy with how I came away with my UDFA haul. There were a lot of really talented players, guys that were high on my board. A lot of, late day 2, early day 3 guys to me that fell out of the draft. So I was really happy with my haul overall. Kamon Rucker was the first one that jumped out to me. He was an early day 3 guy, like borderline top 100. I know he had a really severe leg injury, so that's probably a lot to do with it. But I was a huge fan of his tape. Kobe Bryant, another guy I'm sure that probably ended up on every single shadow team ever because he was a guy
I hope so.
A mid to late day 2 guy throughout the whole process and then falls into the ranks of the undrafted free agents. Again, I'm much less connected when it comes to Falcon stuff than I am Titan stuff, but I couldn't find any reason that he would have fallen.
There was the stuff that came out like with him, like right at the beginning of like rookie minicamp and OTAs. Like he's been balling since he got to Atlanta, and so it's like this guy was a high level, like a high priority free agent for a lot of teams. I mean, everyone was talking about how he was one of the top free agents coming out of the draft. And then he even took a little longer to sign, was obviously waiting for either something specific, whether it was a landing spot or a price, whatever it might have been. But he didn't even sign that quickly. And so it was all like the whole situation's been really interesting. But I'm personally glad he's in Atlanta. I think he's perfect for that scheme. I think he's going to have a lot of opportunities to succeed down there. And I hope he's on everybody's shadow teams. I really feel like that kid's going to have a lot of success early on in his career.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And jumping to the next one here, Malik Verdon, another guy where I knew I was going to leave with him throughout this. He was a borderline top 100 guy for me, one of my guys. I know another guy that had some major medical red flags. That's probably why he fell out of the draft. It was probably worse than I originally thought. Another guy that landed in Atlanta. So I ended up with Watts, Verdon, and Bryant all in that secondary. But I think Verdon is kind of your prototypical box safety. Would have probably been a 10.0 RAS guy if he had been able to test. I don't really have any doubts about that. So I was a big fan of him. Holland Pierce, another guy that I was super vocal about. Top 100 guy for me. I loved Holland Pierce's tape.
What a landing spot, huh?
In Philadelphia, too.
Spot.
Yeah. Couldn't really ask for a better landing spot for a guy like him to get coached up, kind of on the raw side. The athleticism in that massive frame. I think the Eagles are salivating to kind of coach him up and have him replace some of those older tackles whenever they do end up getting out of there. But I think there's a very realistic scenario where he's a starter within the first 3 years in that locker room they got. And then I took back-to-back shots here on tight ends just because I didn't address that in the draft at all again because I didn't like this tight end class very much. But I kind of took some polar opposites right here. I got my kind of F, just big slot receiver in Jake Briningstool. Another guy that I like the landing spot at the Chiefs, kind of sit behind Kelsey and Noah Gray because Kelsey's probably, only got one more year before retirement and very similar stylistically to Noah Gray. But again, just a good landing spot. I had like a 5th on him. I ended up with a 5th on like 90% of this UDFA class. So it's, good enough to me. Elijah Huzzy, another guy that I was pretty big on. I got to him late in the process, but I liked his tape a lot. Ended up in Houston, kind of a thin secondary there too. So I think he's got a pretty clear path to making that roster. And then my other tight end that I got opposite of Briningstool is kind of your more inline wide tight end guy in Caden Prescorn. Me and Parker were both big Prescorn guys, very concerned about the athleticism, but again, he's in a tight end room that's razor thin in Denver. And he is one of the few true inline wide guys in this whole class. So I was excited to get him in there to play that role, at least because I am one of the few people that apparently still cares about inline wide tight end guys. I am right there with Max Toscano is like the truthers for the inline wide tight ends. I'm not going to let them, just turn it into another spot receiver. Willie Lampkin is another one where we briefly talked about him too. Where I don't think he's probably ever going to play at a consistent level, but the tape was so much fun, and he was just so much fun as a player that I couldn't not bring him on. And also it's on the Rams. Anything can happen there with Sean McVay. Who cares? Just take the shot in the dark there. When the tape was that fun. Andrew Armstrong was the last of this group. I have some extra UDFAs that aren't listed here because you get 15 your first year, right?
Something like that. The numbers are all over the place. I know I did 8 my first 2 seasons. Then I learned that apparently I'd been shorting myself like half a UDFA class. So I went all out this year to try and catch up. But I think it is 15 for the first 2.
And then it goes, and then
10 for 2, and then it's down to 8.
Yeah. So I had 7 that didn't get listed right here, but I'll go through them right here. Andrew Armstrong was my last in that list down there. Another guy I didn't love as much as some other people, but I just thought he's kind of your prototypical big body X receiver. Something I was missing after getting Kyle Williams and Restrepo. I thought he landed in a pretty good spot in Miami. And just felt like the best shot at that position in that role out of the UDFA class. Jaquindon Jackson was another guy I had kind of an early day 3 grade on. I was a big Jaquindon Jackson guy. I don't love the running back room in Jacksonville. I think it's really, really crowded because they went and got LaQuinn Allen, who's another guy I kind of regret not going somewhere in here. I know he went really late day 3. I wish I could squeeze him in because he was a top 75 guy for me. But I do worry that there's not enough room for Jaquindon Jackson in Jacksonville, that he may not make that roster, but I was a big fan of his tape as a runner. I did kind of end up with 2 kind of redundant stylistic wise backs, just 2 kind of big body power runners. I don't really have your kind of, scat back receiving guy. But again, there's going to be guys like that in every class. And this is not a 1-year process. I'm going to build this over the course of 3 years. So something I can add there. Another offensive lineman I went and got is Jake Majors. He was my one kind of depth guy, where Majors is he's going to play. He can play any spot on that interior. He's probably going to be more of a flex guy for Carolina. And I was really shocked that he didn't go in the draft because he was kind of the only one talked about beyond Jared Wilson as the only true center in the draft. So I figured he would have been a guy that got overdrafted purely because he was the only one with center experience and nobody touched him. Another weird draft situation there. But I took advantage of that, went and grabbed it, got a guy with center experience. If Bo doesn't end up working out at center, he's probably a guy I can plug and play there. Moving to the defensive side of the ball, I went heavy on D-line this year because I really liked the D-line class. And I thought, I got good value on a lot of these guys. I wasn't a big Jared Ivey guy, but I couldn't really turn that down as a UDFA. I think he fits that 3 to 5 tech, spot really, really well, filling that Draymond Jones hole in Seattle. Joshua Farmer is another guy that did I skip over him? I did completely skip over him in my draft somehow. I don't know how
saving him.
I was saving until I got here. Farmer, prototypical 1 tech, big body, ton, just athleticism all over the place. He's definitely kind of your stash and develop guy. Probably not somebody that's going to contribute a whole lot as a rookie because he's just very, very raw and underfined. But down the road, you're looking at a guy that could develop into something pretty special.
Especially in a Vrabel, a Vrabel-led Patriots.
Oh yeah, and a Vrabel defense too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And potentially, Barmore is back now, right?
Yeah.
So I think opposite of him, could look at a really fun interior there. Obviously, added Abdul Carter here. Cam Horsley is another guy that I was pretty big on. Is kind of a 1-tech run-stopping guy. I really liked his tape as a run defender out of Boston College. I was really shocked he went undrafted. I do think Tennessee's got a really crowded interior defensive line room because they just brought back James Lynch. They just brought back Keandre Coburn, both on brand new contracts. Obviously, you got Jeff and T'Vondre Sweat there. But beyond that, it's kind of thin. There's 1 to 2 spots that are kind of wide open. And I think he's probably got the best chance of making the roster out of anybody of those fringe guys. And definitely a guy that could work pretty early into a rotation as a run defender. And then Jai Joyner is another guy that I had a mid to late day 3 grade on. I worry about the athleticism, but there were some nice things as a run defender and a couple of a nice dip and rip that he had that I was impressed with. The Raiders, not a lot of edge depth there either. when you get to this point, you're just shooting for guys with good landing spots and guys that have a shot at making rosters.
For sure.
That can develop over these years. I already talked about Kamon Rucker there too. And then I think the last UDFA I haven't talked about is Dean Clark out of Fresno. Another guy where I just wanted kind of some more depth at that rangy free safety, more coverage, prototypical role there, because I think I kind of tend to gravitate towards the Malik Verdens, the big body, like prototypical box safeties. They're the ones I enjoy watching more, so I wanted to kind of go ahead and cover my bases with the free safety role, so I can go and chase after the guys that I like watching, the Jonas Sankers, the Malik Verdens, the RAS big box safeties. But I like Dean Clark's tape. I thought that he's a guy that has a pretty strong chance of making the roster there in New York, because their safety room is pretty thin after losing the guys that they did. But yeah, overall, probably some things I would have changed on day 3, but I thought I made up for it with the UDFA class. And for a first year, I think I got some really strong building blocks overall.
No, I think you did a great job, especially kicking off this team. And I mean, like you talked about, like I really, especially like the late day 3, like my round 6, 7 guys, if I can get a couple of these UDFAs to hit, I always will justify it in my head and just be like, oh, well, I just took that guy there instead. Then, like, I think it's just kind of how it's going to go, especially, again, those 6th, 7th rounders and then your UDFAs. It's kind of all the same level of player. Like, you're really just kind of picking the guys you like a little bit more that you want to secure on your team, opposed to waiting and hoping to make it to like the UDFA period. And that's what I just learned through my first couple of seasons, where it's like, no, you're going to have a couple UDFAs that hit. And if you can always have a couple of UDFAs that hit, you're going to feel all right. Because even last year, I mean, I grabbed a guy in Jalen Coker as a UDFA who I was a fan of, but I just didn't really want to draft because I didn't feel like I needed a receiver, because I took a Troy Franklin early in the 2nd round, the same draft. Ooh. And that's what I'm saying, though, because now if I just look at it and I say, oh, well, I just took Coker in the 2nd and I took Franklin as a UDFA, I'm feeling pretty good about it right now, because they were pretty neck and neck as far as the shadow team principles go, the scoring systems, the snap counts. Like, they're pretty close. Like, they're battling for my wide receiver 3 spot right now. And that's why I think it's fun, because I also added a couple other, young receivers in this class as both as UDFAs. So like the battle in my receiver room for the 3, 4, 5 spots is going to be super entertaining. I think that's what you get when you really just go in and get guys you like, and then you get some of those late round hits, those UDFA hits that can kind of step in and make up for, some misses. Like, I think if you look at Franklin, especially, I took him in the 2nd, that's looking like a bust out of year 1, but then Coker had a really good year 1 for UDFA. So it kind of bounces out over time. But I do have to say, I'm glad you went with I'm just going to stay to my board. I'm going to go get my guys. I'm just going to go get, go BPA for this whole draft and just go get the guys that I want on my team. Because my first year, I just went and I drafted 22 guys, tried to cover the board. I also punted on quarterback. Realistically, I punted on quarterback 2 years in a row, even though I got 2 last season, last cycle. But, I finally invested in quarterback this year. I started at a bad time. You started at a great time. You started with this class, which I feel like had some good ceiling guys or some solid late round guys that you could probably, see. You can see a path for them developing. And then you got a class next year where you're going to be able to probably pick and choose out of your top 10 quarterbacks over the first couple of rounds. Like, you'll be able to find your guy. And like, I feel like, so you get the 2 picks per round, right, for your first 3 drafts. And for all 3 of my drafts, this being my 3rd, I never really had like great quarterback options. And then on top of that, the best pick I got was the 5th overall pick in my first draft. So like, I never was really in a spot to go get a high level quarterback. That's why like I keep joking around, like, and you hinted to earlier, like next year I'm definitely coming in and eyeing some of these quarterbacks. And even though I got another 2 this year that I really like one of my options, like I'm just gonna keep trying to fill out that room. But as you know, and as everybody that knows me should know, quarterback is a very low priority in my team building mentality. I want to surround this guy with talent, and that's why I like the direction you went. I mean, I feel like you really hit this D-line hard. And I feel like you have some talent in your receiver room that you really like. And I really hope that works out well for you. Because I think this is a great, and what I was trying to get to, why I like that you went BPA and stuck to your board, is it's going to give you a really great opportunity to see through this next season how that process went for you. And then by the time you get to the, next spring, you're able to sit down and evaluate your process and say, okay, what guys did I miss on and why? and you'll be able to adjust your process. Whereas for me, I feel like it took me kind of a cycle and a half to really settle in and be comfortable doing that. Where I feel like I really kind of sold out this year, and I got some guys in spots, but we'll see how it goes. But being able to go through the shadow team experiment or project, whatever you want to call it, and come out of it every cycle, knowing that you can look back at your evaluation process, your drafting methodology and strategy and process, and really overhaul that and take that in and figure out where you miss, figure out where you can improve, and just kind of stack on top of that. And I think you got a fun class to build from. And like you said, I mean, year one with your, what did we decide? 22 plus 15. So you got 37 max guys on your team right now. Mm-hmm. You're not going to get like a lot of contribution early on. You'll have some fun guys that are going to be fun to follow through year one. But I think, again, with your process and, with the foundation you've laid, I think next year is going to be really fun for you. And I'm excited to watch your team because, I mean, you got guys like you have some really fun day 3 crossover. Like I got Logan Brown, I got Miles Frazier. I thought there was another one that we both had, but I don't know. It's going to be fun to kind of just watch the guys that we have in common and see if we're both idiots or if we're both just smarter than everybody else, and kind of vice versa. See how some of these early picks go. I've been very lucky with my early picks. Out of the first 2 rounds, Franklin, I think, was really the only real miss. And I mean, it was a rookie year that I've had in the first couple rounds. So I'm excited to see like if you have the same success with your guys, which I think you will. I mean, I love a lot of especially your early round guys. I mean, you got edge talent for days. That's kind of what I wanted to kind of segue into. But I really want to talk about the positional value conversation is something that infuriates me all the time. And I really think it's funny, coming in to your first year, a lot of people want to focus on, go get the premium positions, stack up on this value, make sure I can get guys that can contribute, give me points. But I like how you really leaned into what you felt the strengths of the class were. And so could you talk through kind of your mentality as far as coming into the draft? Were you just looking to just go straight BPA? Did you kind of have that in mind? Like, oh, I want to go I like this edge class, so I want an edge, but I probably should also get an edge. Or was it just straight up, no, I love Abdul Carter, I love Ezaraku, I love Kyle Williams, I'm going to go get my guys? Or was there positional value factored in for you, or were you just kind of going at it?
No, I think a lot of times I was fighting the positional value thing too, because like in my head, it was like, it's a lot of pressure. Oh, you got to fill this hole. You got to fill this as an important position. You got to fill this hole. But I think I did a good job staying home and realizing, hey, I don't have to fill this roster out in 1 year. I can sit back and I can draft the guys who I think are good in this class rather than reaching for a player I don't like as much to fill a position that I could have filled with a player I like next year. So it was just a matter of sticking true to my board and taking I thought I played to the strengths of this draft class, which I think were the trenches most of the time, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And just taking, my guys, the ones that I really had a lot of faith in. But yeah, just sticking true to my board. And I think I did overall a pretty good job not conforming to the positional value mob and sticking true to where I thought the class was strong.
It always makes me happy to find another just, not only a QB value, maybe not truther, but you see the vision that I've laid forth. But also, there's a lot of guys that I see that always want to go get a receiver high. They always want to go get an edge high just because they want to get, even if it's not like a premium pick, they want to get a high round pick on that talent and just try and keep taking shots, but early on those positions. Whereas I'm 100% with you, and you know that, but it's, go evaluate the class, see where the strengths in the class are. And then what I like doing is I go through, and it's always, am I going to go take my edge 8 or my O-line 3?
Exactly.
Type conversations. And it's like, if the 8th edge is that much better, then of course I'm taking it. But I mean, why would I not, try and address premium spots at other positions that just might be sliding due to volume at other spots? That's where I think we saw a lot of this year, where there was a lot of volume in certain spots that other guys just ended up slipping for kind of like you hinted to random reasons, could be, or just, is it not a non-premium position, a weak position in the class? We'll let him slide a little bit. Like, I think Jake Majors is a great example. He's another guy that I picked up as a UDFA. I'm really hoping that he can find a way onto my roster this year. And then just the other thing that you brought up that I wanted to talk to, mostly because I think I've given it a go this year, but the scheme specificity, and then finding the guys that, I like this type of player, but I need this type of player. I feel like is a conflict I have not only just the draft, but like every draft cycle when I'm evaluating guys. And it's like, oh, well, I need a safety, but what kind of safety do I need? Well, I like this. This is my prototypical safety period. And I don't really like this position because it doesn't fit this. And how do I make that work in my scheme? And so I was actually able to kind of overhaul my defense and kind of throw in a scheme, and we're going to see how it goes and how it fits up. And again, that's where it's tough because some of these players might fit a role in your mind, but then they end up on a team where they're playing a completely different role. So that could be hard. But I'd love to hear kind of your thoughts on how you balance that, because again, like it's something I struggle with, where it's like, I like big physical defensive backs, but sometimes you need a rangy center fielder at safety, or you need a smaller guy that can run around and make some plays for you. Or when I'm looking at a slot guy, I'm always going to prefer like the bigger body can also play linebacker slot type, opposed to the small like nickel corner style player. So kind of those flex positions are always tough for me schematically, trying to figure out where a guy can land in the league. But then also on my own side, I don't like watching some of these smaller players like a defensive back or some, like you're a wide zone guy, I'm a gap guy. I want to see the big, strong, mauler offensive lineman. You want to see the athletes. And so how do you kind of balance out, this is the type of player I like, and then, I might not like this player's build, style, whatever it might be on my board, on my profile, but he's still a good football player. I should probably get him on my team.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I was going to go next. That's why I think it's so funny how we're like polar opposites schematically, like especially on offense and like run scheme wise. But we ended up with a lot of the same offensive linemen, like on day 3. And to me, I think the biggest thing when it comes to that is I think you pick schemes and styles that kind of match what you like as an evaluator. That's what I try to do, at least, where like I have always been, again, I don't watch as much NFL film as I should. I've still got a long way to go in terms of like knowing the schematics and X's and O's of football. There's a lot I need to learn there, especially defensively. But I've always been kind of a Mike McDaniel zealot. Like I love what he's done in Miami. I love both his run schematics and his pass game. But especially the way he runs wide zones, the way he gets his tackles out in space. That's my favorite way to run the ball, is what they do in Miami. And I think that matches exactly what I like to watch, in offensive linemen, where like I love the tackles that are athletic and get out in space and work well there. And that, are a lot that have the range and the foot speed. And that's my guys of tackles match the scheme that I like to watch. So like the Logan Brown, the reason I was so high on him is because he works so well in space and he's such a good athlete. And he matches perfectly with, a Mike McDaniel's run scheme. He is a Mike McDaniel's tackle. So I think that's the biggest thing, is just kind of matching. And maybe this won't work, maybe it's me just trying to conform too much to what I like, and that's not actually what's going to work. But it feels good in my brain. Like it matches well. Because, like I said, the players that work well, at least in my offensive scheme, are also the players that I think I end up being higher on. So like Marcus Bowe is another great example. He would be an awesome Mike McDaniel's tackle. So that ended up being really easy for me when it came to drafting these guys on day 3. Like Miles Frazier is another guy. I want to follow that kind of Eagles-esque kind of template when you go to an offensive lineman. I want really athletic tackles. I want just rocks for guards. I don't really care how athletic they are, and a really athletic center. And I think, I came away, I didn't invest early on in offensive line in this, but as far as day 3 flyers go, I think I matched that pretty well with this. And that's what I'm going to continue to try to build as this goes on, when I get to invest more capital and more valuable capital in offensive line. That's the kind of thing I'm going to go with. And as well, I think that matches well with the Dolphins offensive scheme that I'm trying to mimic as well. Defense, I'm a lot more kind of fast and loose. I feel like this is what every defensive coordinator just says. Like, we want to sit in too high and dominate the line of scrimmage, right? That's what everybody wants to do.
Yeah.
But really, I want to invest heavily in the defensive line, kind of push DB out of my mind a little bit. If there's DBs I really like an Azareye'h Thomas that falls into my lap a lot later than I think he should be there, I'll go ahead and take that. But I think, to me, I want to invest really heavily in the defensive trenches and go there first, and just be able to sit in too high while also not getting gashed. But also that's what everybody wants to do, right? That's why it doesn't work all that often. So I think I still need to form more of a concrete defensive scheme that I feel like I want to mirror. And that's going to kind of dictate more of where I go in the future, defensively, especially in the secondary, because I've got more holes to fill there than I do in the trenches. But offense is a lot more clear vision wise to me right now. I know exactly where I want to be and what my identity is going to be for the shadow team on offense. But I'm kind of still up in the air on defense. And that's something that I think I'll probably more let my personnel dictate as I go and build this thing more in the future. I'll try to kind of mold my defensive scheme to where my defense ends up by year 2 or year 3. Versus on offense, I have a much more clear idea, so I kind of want to mold my personnel to my scheme, which is kind of weird, like that down the middle, but that's just kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, no, and I think that's perfect, though, because I think, I came in and I told myself I was just going to, lean into what I liked, especially like this year and moving forward. I'm going to do it a lot more, which I wish I would have started earlier. But defense, like I was kind of in the same boat where I understand defense, but I didn't really know what scheme that I would like to, build for. And so I was kind of like, let's take this first 2-3 drafts and then just see what kind of players that I like, what kind of, play styles, play builds that I fall into and end up on my team, and then just see where we got through a few cycles, and then we'll start adjusting. That's why I said, this year after my third draft, I'm throwing out this first attempt at a defensive scheme, and I just keep looking at it, and I just always laugh because it's like I never would have picked this defensive scheme for myself, but like the more that like my shadow team's leaned into it, I've been trying to learn more about it, just from a coaching perspective, trying to learn more about defense anyway. But then it's just funny because I'm a big trench guy, and my trench situation on both sides of the ball is tough, real tough, and it's like a combination of just like misses and then lack of investment. Like looking at my offensive line room right now, my highest investment was this year, and it was a 3rd rounder, and then it's just a bunch of day 3 guys and UDFAs, and so it's like, and then my defensive line room is funny because it's kind of the similar situation where I have some day 2 picks thrown out there that we're kind of waiting to see where they land, but it's a lot of day 3 guys, some UDFA sneaking in there, and so that's why I leaned into it. I saw that I felt good about my back end. I invested in Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean last year, which is really fun for me. I'm hoping Cam Smith can figure it out. I don't know why he's not playing in Miami. He never has so far. But I'm hoping one of these years he's just going to fall into a spot and make it happen. And he's coming up on a contract year, so fingers crossed. But I also got a Kobe Bryant. I got Dwight McGlothern in that DB room, which is a fun kind of corner room. And then my safety room has been up and down, but again, it's just lack of investment. So I've really been focusing on looking at the spots, and that's kind of where I'm going into year 4 with this mentality. But it's what positions have I invested in? Which positions have I not invested in? That's kind of how I want to do my priorities next year, kind of have that as a factor in there, just because, I have positions that are really solid. Like my running back room is really solid with Bijan, 1st round pick. My receiver room is really solid. I have JSN, Malik Neighbors, and I talked about, Coker and Franklin battling out, but JSN and Neighbors, both 1st round picks. My DBs were great, but I have Quinyon Mitchell, who was a 1st rounder, at Cooper DeJean, who was a 2nd rounder, probably could have been a 1st rounder. I have, just all my early investments are going well, but it's like kind of a duh thing to say. Yeah. But then I look at where my team's struggling, and it's like, I haven't put any like worthwhile capital into that room. And so that's something that I'm excited to kind of play with as I move forward. But that's why it's fun. The scheme thing is interesting because you just get a picture, and I picture all the time. Like you'll never see this team actually play together, which is kind of the fun part for me. It's the fun and the most miserable part of the whole experiment, because you have guys that you love and you see good at spots that you hate, or you see them just get misused or underutilized. Like I said, I picked JSN 2nd pick of my very 1st round drafting, and he goes to the Seahawks where he's immediately wide receiver 3. And it's like, I have my 1st round pick now sitting behind 2 guys. He's worked his way to a role, and you've seen that go. And I don't know. That's like the fun part of watching it go, and that's why you really have to commit to it, right? And that's why I love that I'm just a nerd for this stuff. I'm just a degen, and I pull up my shadow team all the time, whether I'm at work or I'm just bored somewhere. I'll pull it up and just scroll through it and just think about how it would look, what I would do with the group, what we're probably going to be looking at next year. I always laughed at looking at my O-line room.
We're just waiting on the Chandler Zavala breakout,
dude. Chandler Zavala is the reason that I am the way I am in the draft mindset now. It was purely him. I didn't like the tape. I thought it was fine. I heard a lot of hype. I think it was my 2nd draft. I think it was last year. Yeah, my 2nd draft. And I was like, oh no, it was my 1st draft, my 1st year, 2 years ago. And I was just like, everyone's high on him. I'm still new to this. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'll go get him. I'll go get him early, and just threw away that 4th rounder. Just threw it away. But we made up for it though, because we got Bo Limmer coming out, we got Mahogany coming out, we got Frazier coming out. I got a guy at left tackle that I hope can stick, and that's why I think it's funny, talking about how we're polar opposites, right? Because you got Logan Brown because you like him as a tackle, and you think he's a good mover at tackle for you. I got Logan Brown because I hope the Vikings kick him inside to guard, because I think he's an awesome guard, and that's why I think it's funny because we'll like the same player, but for completely different reasons.
Totally different reasons, yeah.
And that's why it's fun. That's why
we'll draft guys, like just like that, where I see guys as complete and total guard or tackles who I'd never try at guard. And then sometimes it's the inverse, where you see guys at tackle that I'd not be comfortable trying out there. But we end up drafting the same guys.
Well, and it's like, because I had Marcus Bowe on my board, like the BPA on my board was screaming at me for a long time. It was like, just take him. I mean, just why not take him? He's leagues better per your own rankings than other guys that are available right now. I just didn't think he was a good. I talk about like it's an actual team, but I don't think he's a good fit for what we're trying to do here. But no, it's just I just didn't. I worry. And I talk, not a culture fit. That's bad. Like I talked to you about what's his name, right? Lampkin. Bo and Lampkin were kind of like the same for me, where it's just like I worried about them finding a role in the NFL, and I think I had such a big focus this year on go get guys that are going to contribute, because I just kind of through my first 2 seasons I had a few players that kind of bubbled up into like either a stalemate position, or I don't think you're going to end up making. I think you're going to fall out of the league here in a couple of years. And so my big focus this year was like, go get guys that are versatile, go get guys that have upside at multiple positions. We'll talk about my draft another time, but that's why I got the flexible guys I talked to you about. I got defensive linemen that are flexible. I got offensive linemen that are flexible. I got these receivers that I could put in, because I keep looking at my receiver room and I have no X receiver. JSN and Malik Neighbors are my 1 and 2, and neither of those guys should really be playing perimeter on their own.
Coker's an X.
So, yeah, but that's why I'm looking at it right now, and I'm like, because I have an XZY when it really should just be wide receiver 1, 2, 3. But I'm like, Coker should be the X, and I should have like JSN playing in the slot with Neighbors on the other opposite side. But
yeah,
it's just funny, man.
And I'd give Coker the X way before I give Franklin the X.
Oh, yeah. 100%. Franklin's like the slot guy battling for wide receiver 3, where Coker's like, no, you need me. You need me here. That's why he's my wide receiver 3 right now. And then it's like, I think, and we're not talking about me. I just like, again, I get looking at this thing and I could talk about my team probably all day. But I think Tucker Kraft might ruin my tight end room, because he's doing good enough. And I got him in the 3rd round, where it's like, I don't need another tight end. And I have this crazy wide receiver room with a bunch of talent. I don't need a tight, but then it's like me in the offense that I want to run in life. And it's like, I need something else in that room. And currently I have nothing, but it's like, every time I go to draft a tight end, it's like, I don't need, I need this position. I don't need a tight end. And it's just, that room's going to tank. And it's all because of that bad mentality that I have.
And again, I hesitate to put anything. Nothing is definitive in summer scouting, but just looking ahead from what we've seen so far, this 26 tight end class is rough. There's like one guy that sticks out as a clear day 1 guy. There's like 2 intriguing day 2 options to me so far, and that's about it. It's pretty thin to me so far. I'm not sure your solution is 26.
I took 2 UDFAs this year that I personally liked a lot. I don't know if they're going to be like stars or anything, but I feel like they could. Like I said, the tight end room I have right now is just 1 guy. So it's like I got 2 more guys in, and if they can push for spots, they can kind of fill in that room a little bit on the back end. But again, that's where it's like I look at it again. It's investment of capital, and that's where I think it's like the whole concept of the shadow team thing is fun, right? Where it's get in there, figure out your strategy for how you want to manage, personnel you like. But then really the fun game is like you always yell at your team for this position group sucks or this position group sucks. But it's like I come back to my team and it's like maybe when I'm yelling at other teams, I should look at how much they've invested. And that's why, as a Bengals fan, I've done that with the O-line for like 2 years now. And it's like, oh, the O-line sucks because you just don't invest money or draft picks into the position room, so that's why it's no good. But I mean,
Okay.
and they've started to. That's why I just keep looking at it. And I'm like, if I don't have a couple of these guys pop off, like I feel like looking at my room right now, I could have like a solid 5-6 guys over the next 2-3 years that fill into roles. But if for some reason that doesn't happen, I think I'm just going to have to start swinging like day 1 and day 2 and just go get offensive linemen. But yeah, no, it's fun. I'm excited to watch your team. I'm glad that you started it up. I hope you're in the league. I've been bugging you about it. I need to get you in this league because I got to see how you score, because I can pull up my because we track we track 3 years of scoring, so you kind of see how your team's growing and changing.
Oh yeah.
And so if you are out of your mind, if you don't think I'm going to be comparing my first years to your first years.
Oh, I would expect nothing less. I hope you are.
And we always joke because the shadow team stuff is not for competition. It's not fantasy football. It's just team building. People do it a bunch of different ways. Some people are trying to win Madden championships. Some people are trying to win the league based on our scoring principles. Some people are just trying to see if they can put together a good team. Some people don't even care about the evaluation process, and they just use consensus boards that they can find online, and they're just trying to go get that Madden championship. And so you're not supposed to compare yourself to other people in the league. But if I'm checking my score every week, like it is my job, I'll tell you what, like we get into this season and it's every week. I'm putting in the scores. I'm instantly going through it. I'm putting in scores for like the people that I know that I'm close with or I'm trying to compare to. And it's fun because it's just, the scoring system's whatever, but it's also like, it's just a good time to build it.
You don't get this far into something without being competitive. We're both ultra competitive. You're not this big of a football sicko if you're not ultra competitive. So, we're always comparing everything.
Well, it's funny because that's why I always joke with you, I my first 2 years, I was still trying to figure out who I was as an evaluator. I was trying to figure out what like a good process to have was. My process has changed dramatically all 3 cycles that I've done with my shadow team because of the shadow team. Honestly, if I would just been putting boards together, I don't know if it would have changed as much as it has. But then, trying to talk to you and be like, hey, don't do this dumb mistake that I did for both of my first 2 drafts. Don't do this dumb mistake that soiled my first draft. And so I'm hoping that I've imparted some wisdom on you, and hopefully I'm not a complete moron either. And hopefully your team does a little bit better than mine these first 2 years. But I joined the big leagues next year. So I really try to lock in. Hopefully one of these quarterbacks can pan out for me. And then, like I said, I'm taking a shot next year because my biggest downfall and what's really held me back because I won my group my first year. I won my group, the rookie group. And then last year I really fell off. I was kind of middle or lower middle class of the pack, but I've never really had quarterbacks contribute points because I've never had quarterbacks play. And the quarterbacks contribute a lot of points. So even if you get a guy that's a bad starter, when you're in these first couple of groups while you're still building your team up before you join, the big boys, if you have a quarterback that can start, even if he's bad, you're going to be a lot higher. Like you're going to score a lot higher. Like there's the guys that had like the Will Levises, and even like the Anthony Richardsons through his injury issues. Like those guys are putting up points week to week, and that's something that's held my team back. So I finally decided to invest in quarterback, and so I'm throwing that out to you as well. So don't get frustrated when your scores are low. Just remember that your quarterback's probably not scoring 10 points a week like other quarterbacks might be.
Brosmer could get there.
Brosmer could get there. I see the vision. JJ McCarthy's one more injury away from Brosmer time. So
that's what I'm saying. I mean, they clearly they don't want JJ to play. They're searching long and hard for backup QB for other QB options. They wanted Aaron Rodgers. Brosmer's not that far away.
I mean, this is a stacked room between JJ McCarthy, Max Brosmer. Sam Howell, that's right, the guy they got. And then let's not forget the dark in the room, Brett Rippon. So I mean this Vikings quarterback competition this offseason been a thriller to watch. So I'm excited for Max. But yeah, no, I appreciate you joining this journey with me. Like I said, I'm excited to follow your team.
Of course,
I'm excited to see like who we align on, right? Like I know we have a lot of these, like I feel like the UDFAs and late day 3 guys we're going to be a lot more in sync with. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like really our teams are going to be separated by like the first 2 days of this draft every year. But I'm interested to see kind of which UDFAs like we both get in on and pop up and make it happen or find spots on our team, and which of these day 3 guys we're both like in line on and make it. And And again, I think I'm excited to talk with you through what misses did we have, why did we miss, what did we like that didn't translate, what did we not like that we should have liked. I'm excited to go through all that stuff too, as the season goes and throughout the season. But just wanted to make sure I want to get our draft hauls off. So I wanted to go through your team today because you're the first year. Everyone on the channel can now officially follow your team instead of making their own if they don't want to deal with it.
That's true.
And then I'm going into year 3. We'll go over my team on the next episode where I'll talk about my 40,000 player UDFA haul and my final 2-pick per round shadow draft, and then just kind of where my team's at, the defense I went with, kind of the potential for my offensive line. Just kind of it's some fun stuff. My running back room feels kind of fun. I have Bijan, but I kind of had the itch to go get like an RB2. And I couldn't decide what I wanted to do with that because I feel like Bijan's such a well-rounded player. You can kind of throw anybody with him in that room and he's going to complement him well. And so I just kind of got a guy that plays with a style that I like. And he actually ended up going to a spot where I'm going to have some decent volume of talent. So, but yeah, no, if there's anything else you want to talk about with your shadow team, I'll get us out of here. But I just wanted to thank you for the time. I'm excited to have you on future episodes as well. And we're going to talk about more in shadow teams as well. I know we have a lot of awesome plans to get through some draft prospects weekly, and just bring you guys along with us as we evaluate. And that's why I wanted to, kind of loop the shadow team stuff in here as well, because I want you guys to watch us talk through prospects, talk through what we see on the film and summer scouting, and then talk about it in season and what we're seeing. And then as we get into the spring and talk through the full, draft process and get into the nitty gritty of it. But I also want to make sure we're bringing in that, team building and evaluation perspective, because it's one thing to build a board. But the reason I love the shadow teams is because you really get to put that to the test and go see which players you value more, and also look back on it and say, was that a good call, bad call? And so I kind of want to make this like the pseudo front office, show. So I'm glad to have you along with me as a competitor and a co-worker, a co-host, whatever title we want to throw around here. But yeah, no, I'm excited, man. I'm excited to get talking about my team too, as you can tell, because I can't stop thinking about it. So,
oh yeah, it's gonna be so much fun. Not only doing all the shadow team stuff, but also the draft work for next year. We got a lot of fun stuff coming this summer.
Your first time summer scouting?
It is my first go around with the summer scouting. I'm already like knee deep into it, so I'm excited to just go head first.
So we'll bring the audience along with your shadow team, with your scouting journey. I mean, this is the Drew show, so I'm just here to facilitate it. So, yeah, no, let's get out of here. I just appreciate you. Make sure you plug your stuff before we get out of here, and thanks again, brother.
Yeah, man, I'm so glad to be here. Obviously, not only to just kind of grow as an evaluator and hold myself accountable, but also just to be in this whole world, this whole community that Shadow Team has grown to be. It's a really, really cool opportunity. And obviously, to be here this summer, with you breaking down prospects and everything we'll be doing, it's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, you can find everything that I do at Iron City Film, pretty much everything on Twitter there. I just recently started covering the Titans, doing some writing over at TitansSize.com, their fan side of the Titan coverage team. Usually just film breakdown pieces right now, breaking down some UDFAs, just real degenerate stuff, UDFA film breakdown pieces, for the real sickos out there. But yeah, you can find pretty much everything I do at my Twitter, or X now. I'll never get used to that. But yeah, that about does it for me.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. I'll see y'all on the next one, where I'm going to rant about my team and Drew's going to suffer through it. So, but I appreciate you guys. See you on the next one.